This is the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra, and of course it's Ultra, right, because it has the orange bands, which means things are Ultra these days. Well, it's actually a pretty good watch. I've been hiking with it for a few months now, and here's what I've observed and learned if you're thinking about using this as a hiking watch. Let's start with positioning first. It's got a similar capability as the Apple Watch and the Garmin when it comes to positioning. It's multi-GNSS, multi-band. I took it to some more challenging environments like these tight switchbacks here in Angeles National Forest. And generally, the newer watches do well. And if you zoom in on the track, you can see that the Samsung kind of loses it in the tougher switchback areas here. It does come back together once I come out into the blue skies, but that wasn't too great. And the real area where it sort of fell down was in a slot canyon. Now, multiband is supposed to be good in a slot canyon, so I took it to a place called Annie's Canyon, which is a little slot canyon here in Southern California where I do this kind of testing. And you can see going through here that the Apple Watch and the Phoenix did their best shot going through the slot canyon, and the Samsung just kind of gave up and then picked it up when I was back out of the slot canyon up on top here. So that's not a good thing. And let me just throw a disclaimer out here, like, that's a challenging hiking environment. There's a lot of GPS devices that wouldn't work in there. So it's not all bad. Why is it not working in there? Well, maybe it's the antenna design in here. Garmin and Apple Watch obviously have had time to work on tuning the antenna and, getting it just right. Maybe it's that, maybe it's Wear OS. There's a lot of different factors, but that aside, in general, it worked okay for positioning. If I looked at the track lengths at the end of a hike compared to other watches, generally it was in the same ballpark. It was never really far, out of whack when it comes to those. And at some points, it was exactly the same as the Apple Watch Ultra, which was interesting. When it comes to altitude, all of these watches are all these watches can be very inaccurate when it comes to altitude because they're not professional altimeters like you'd get in an airplane. Sometimes they're spot on, sometimes they're not. And it's the same thing with this. Sometimes it was a few hundred feet off, other times it was maybe 5-10 feet, same as other watches like the Garmin or the Apple Watch. But it doesn't offer a way to calibrate the altimeter, and it doesn't offer a way to tweak the positioning settings like the Garmin's do. On the Garmin, you can do that and get more accurate results or save some battery. On this, it's like the Apple Watch. You can't do that. So let me show you what it's like to navigate on here with apps that are available for Wear OS. And let me throw out a disclaimer first. There's not a lot of good Wear OS apps. The Wear OS ecosystem, I think, isn't quite as mature as the iOS ecosystem that Apple has. So there's not as many choices, and the apps that you can get here aren't quite as good. For example, like Komoot and AllTrails, they don't work offline with the map alone. You need the phone to get them to work together. But there are some options. And the first option is the Samsung Health app that comes bundled with this watch, which was surprisingly good. Now, you need to get the phone out to start this, which runs on any Android device. You don't need a Samsung phone. You can load a route up, and there are routes that you can get within the Samsung ecosystem. They're not that good, but the real power lies in importing a GPX file. So you can bring a GPX file into here, and it'll map out the route for you. And then all you have to do is turn on the watch and open the Health app, and it'll automatically sync to the watch, and it'll also sync maps to the watch offline. And you don't have to do anything to make that happen. It just works. And I thought that was great. Just sort of seamless as opposed to other ones where you have to manually do it. So that was pretty awesome. Now the maps are so-so. They're not very detailed. There's no contour lines. There's no trail names. There's a couple little names I saw on there, but it's enough to allow you to know whether you're on the trail or not when you're out there. And it also has very good turn prompts on the screen and also voice prompts, which you can turn off. There's also off-course alerts that'll pop off if you're off of the route. So kudos to Samsung Health for doing that and putting it all in here. It all works within this Health app too. It's not like the Apple Watch where you have to switch between the Workout app and the Maps app if you're navigating. It's all in this app. There are some limited screens that you can go through. You can customize the data fields on here. It's nothing like you'd get on a Garmin, but it gives you basic things that you're probably going to need on a hike, and it seemed to work well. And overall, the experience of navigating with the Samsung Health app I thought was great. When you're done with the hike, you can sync your watch back to the phone, which again just happens automatically, and you can export your activity as a GPX file if you want to bring it into somewhere else. Okay, the other thing is Google Maps. Now, when this watch came out, Google Maps announced offline maps on Wear OS watches, so I figured I'd give it a try. And to do this, you go into Google Maps on your phone, you download an offline map area, and then when you open Google Maps on your watch, you will see your offline maps here, and you can just click download, and it will download to the watch for offline use. Now, when I had this out, the documentation, I thought I read that it offers routing, offline routing here. So I was excited to try it. And if you look at the maps, they look really good. You can zoom in and zoom out. But when it came to doing routing offline using walking directions on a trail, it just didn't work for me. But you could see the maps on there offline. So, it's easy enough to just walk with the blue dot on the line and know where you're going and not have that automatic routing. I think it's still useful. Now, there's other apps that offer offline mapping and navigation, but the one that, everyone pointed to was one called Outdoor Active. Now, if you do want to use this on your watch, you have to do a paid level, but there are good maps. There's a lot of different routes on here that you can automatically download. Nothing like AllTrails, but you can import a GPX file here as well. When it came to bringing it on to the watch, it was a little bit finicky. Sometimes these transfers stalled out. Other times they came across. When I went out on the trail, it worked okay. It wasn't the greatest, it wasn't the worst, but there's a turn arrow and there's some stats about the hike, and the map page is on there as well. When you're walking and hiking, it redraws okay. Sometimes there was like a glitch where a big tile would be missing, but given a choice between all of these apps, I think the Samsung Health app worked really well, and it was what I would go to when I was hiking. If you guys have apps you want me to check out for Wear OS, leave me a comment below and I will definitely check it out, because hopefully there are some better options out there. All right, let's get into battery. Now, overall, just wearing this around, battery lasted about 2 or 3 days. Now, on a hike and taking it on the trail, it was variable, and having the map open and doing navigation burned more than not having the map open and having navigation. In general, I was getting somewhere between 10 and 14 hours of activity time, and I think for most people who are hiking, that's going to be fine. It's going to be enough to do something like, a long hike, like a Grand Canyon rim to rim, 14 hours. You can tweak some of the settings in here, put it into low power mode and get more battery life out of it. But I think for all but the most extreme cases in terms of day hiking, the battery is going to be okay. Now, let's get into the other features. Actually, just like using this on the trail, like what is it like? First off, this watch is solid. I didn't have any problems. I didn't have any reboots or glitches or anything like that. The processor was very quick and zippy. Everything worked well. The screen is a beautiful 3000 nits, which I was able to see in all conditions. The buttons worked well. I didn't get any accidental presses. There's a little bit of a guard around it, but buttons worked well. There's this middle action button that you can customize, be things like the flashlight, and if you hold it down, it'll set off a siren. These things were okay. The Apple Watch has a siren too. Good to have. The flashlight on this comes nothing close to what you get on the new Garmin ones, which are like a dedicated LED flashlight, but in a pinch, I think it would work okay. The heart rate on this was always within a beat or two of my Apple Watch Ultra 2 and my Garmin Epix Pro. It's a touchscreen, obviously, but it also has this bezel thing where you can move around the outside. It was okay. Sometimes I found myself coming to the top and accidentally pulling the tray down on the top. Not a big deal, but when I was tired, it happens more. The band for me didn't really work well. It felt pretty stiff and uncomfortable. Adjusting it was a bit of a pain. You have to pop these pins out and move the things around. Once you get it, it's okay. But I went ahead and just got another band off of Amazon for a couple bucks, and it worked much better. Now, would I recommend this watch? This is a great watch, and I think if you're looking for a Wear OS and or Samsung Health AI watch that you can also hike in, do long hikes, this is your move. This is the best move out there. Now, if you just have an Android phone and you're looking for a good watch for hiking, you're probably better off with a Garmin or a Coros or a Polar or one of the other sports watches that are built for the outdoors and hiking. Those are going to have much longer battery life. They're going to have maybe offline navigation, offline maps and routing, and they'll work better for the outdoors, but they will lack all of these Wear OS connected features. So any questions you guys might have, leave me a comment. I will be happy to answer them. And if you want me to check out other watches or apps, let me, for Wear OS, leave me a comment as well. And a big thank you to everyone who supports this site. Because of your help, I was able to do this review without taking a free tester from Samsung or taking money from Samsung. And, just be completely honest with you. And in this case, I think the watch does really well. So I'm always happy to report when things are, good values, good buys, and good products. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I will see you out on the trails.